So we are back for the second part of Bassem versus Piers Morgan 2.0. And this one is all debate, baby. Now keep in mind, this was taken from a 2-hour interview. And we've tried to include the most interesting parts, but this debate goes around in circles for nearly 40 minutes, yo. So if you want to watch it all, head over to Piers Morgan's channel and check it there. Link down below. Now, the debate starts when Piers presents the question of why no neighboring Arab countries are willing to take in the Palestinians as refugees, and Bassem's answer is quite the clever one.
Queen Rania accused the West of a glaring double standard. She said it's the first time in modern history there's such human suffering, and the world is not even calling for a ceasefire. So the silence is deafening, and to many in our region it makes the Western world complicit. Other people said, well, okay, if you feel that strongly, why aren't you taking in any Palestinians? Why is Egypt not taking Palestinians? Why does the Arab world want to constantly attack Israel without actually offering any place to go for the Palestinians? And what do you say to that?
That is exactly what Israel wants. And that is exactly what might actually starts Third World III. This is the war solution. These are Palestinians, these are their lands. And then suddenly take them. Why? So they've been basically kicked around from their homes. And now another country should take them? You see what would happen? Imagine this. And because Israeli official has been talking openly about this. It's like, why don't they just go in Sinai? Why they go? You know what would happen? Those people are gonna be pushed in Sinai. And with any population, 2 million people, they are living in refugee camp. What do you think will happen? Unrest, chaos. And then after a few years, the Western media will come with their cameras like, oh, look at those Arabs. Oh, they're killing each other. Oh, Israel is good that they got rid of them. And then they will go to the West Bank. And so those 3.5 million people push into Jordan. The whole idea, why does Jordan take them? Why does Egypt take them? The same question. Europe has 44 countries. Why don't they take Israel? America has 50 states. Why don't they give them Florida? I mean, we seem to complain about Florida the whole time. Why don't they just like give Israel? The whole idea was like, oh, you're Arabs, you're all the same. No, no, no. Because what will happen then? So Israel will move into Jordan? That's like, oh, Saudi, why don't you take the Jordanians? This is not a solution. This is not a solution.
I hear you. I'm not taking a position either way. Let me ask you directly.
But I want to say something about what Queen Rania said.
Okay.
The whole idea about like the West.
Yeah.
I think that in 3 weeks, Israel morally corrupted the West like no other. I think the West will have a lot of time to recover because for years, the West has been telling us, oh, look, we're liberal. We're all about human rights. All are equal. Adopt our values. And then suddenly, well, you don't want to even to cease. We don't want to even tell Israel to stop. And suddenly, McDonald's are giving free meals to the Israeli because like nothing will make you feel better after eating a bunch of Palestinian kids than a Happy Meal.
Now Piers is going to ask Bassem how he thinks Israel should be handling the conflict with Palestine. And this is where people begin to see what they think is a crack in Bassem's debate. I have to warn you, the content they are about to discuss is very graphic in nature. And because of YouTube censors, we'll have to mute some of the audio.
So this brings me to Hamas. What Israel will say, because they say it to me every time they come on the program, they say, look, we suffered such a catastrophic terror attack on October the 7th that we have decided we are going to get rid of Hamas. There are 40,000 or so Hamas terrorists in their eyes who need to be got rid of. And I do believe they're terrorists. Only terrorists can commit the kind of act of terrorism we saw. On that point, can we agree on that? Do you believe Hamas is a terror group?
I'm not a big fan of Hamas, and they are a militant group.
Are they terrorists, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so we agree on this. So you have 40,000 of them living in Gaza amongst the civilian population. If Israel has decided to eliminate a terror group, Hamas, as the world did with ISIS, for example, and I think there are a lot of parallels given the way they behaved on October the 7th to ISIS. How do you do it if you don't do it the way Israel is currently trying to do it?
Exactly not the way that Israel does it, because if you have one of the most advanced military powers in the world, and it takes you 3 weeks, 9,000 Palestinian civilian death, 21,000 injured. As we are talking right now, Israel just bombed Jabalia, which is a known refugee camp. This is not self-defense. You know, like one of the most questions, like, does Israel have the right to defend itself? This is a no-value question. This is a no-value question.
Well, I would ask a different point. I would say not only do they have a right to defend themselves, which every country would after a terror attack, right? But they actually have a duty and responsibility to their population to try and stop that happening again. I do understand, and I agree with that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If it takes you all of that time, all of these civilians, to take out a few hundred guerrilla fighters.
We don't know how many of the people
A few
who died.
thousand.
We don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but Bassem, you don't know and I don't know.
We don't know, but
Right?
like...
We don't even know if the casualty numbers are correct because they're all coming from Hamas.
And we should believe Israel?
Not necessarily, no. But here's my point. I don't think we should assume that we know these statistics are correct. I don't think we should assume we know exactly how many children are being killed. We do know a lot have been killed, so the moral argument remains the same. But we don't know how many Hamas terrorists have been killed in the last 3 weeks. We just don't know, do we?
So basically we're dealing with a very incompetent military force that has been sucking America dry for years and then they cannot do the job.
But how else do they get rid of Hamas?
Not like that.
How do they do it?
I don't know, but not like that, because they've been trying
But you've
the
got to
same...
have another...
They have, first of all, I'm not a military expert. Second of all, they've been trying the same thing for years. This is not an eye for an eye anymore. This is an eye, a limb, a life, a house, a neighborhood, a whole population for an eye.
I mean, your friend Ben Shapiro that you particularly despise.
Oh, I love Ben Shapiro. He's very smart.
Oh, yeah, but you've been very critical. I mean, that's fair enough. I'm sure he would be of you. But when I asked him about proportion, he said, I don't care about a proportionate response.
So let's kill civilians as...
Hamas did this, so we are going to get rid of Hamas.
But
in his eyes, it wasn't eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It was this group of terrorists did this, and we are now going to rid the world of these terrorists.
And this is very important to look at things in context. When you see how Israelis talk inside their community. There was a very famous post by Uriel Eritzol. He is the speechwriter of Netanyahu. He said, what is so horrific about understanding that the whole Palestinian people are our enemies? All of them are enemy combatants. We should call them mother, destroy their homes, the homes that they raised, those snakes, so no snakes will be raised in this house anymore. And this was reposted by Ali Chaket, which is the minister of, wait for it, justice. It's not about Hamas anymore. They can tell you it's about Hamas, but it's not about Hamas. It is basically, they have said it many times, Piers. This is a way to kind of push them into Sinai. This is not about eradicating Hamas. This ship has sailed. Anybody who still believes that this is about Hamas is stupid, because they...
See, I don't agree with that.
Really?
I tell you what I don't agree. Any country that suffered the kind of terror attack that Israel suffered, with the kind of death toll that occurred that day, 1,500 plus people, grandmothers, kids, young women being kidnapped, beheaded, it's been reported, and so on. Well, you can raise an eyebrow. They found a young woman's...
But what about the babies that...
Well, there was a report, and you and I had this discussion on air. You falsely quoted me, and I wanted to clarify that with you in person. You thought I'd said that 40 babies had been...
What did you say?
I never said that.
What did you say?
I said it's been reported that 40 babies were killed, some of whom had been beheaded. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, it is different.
Yes.
Do you accept it?
English is a second language, so
they're different things.
Of course, yes.
So there was a lot of back and forth and disputes, and I encourage you guys to seek out this information and verify for yourself. Up next, Bassem will continue his criticism of what he believes is the pushing of false narratives. And again, the subject matter and his description will be graphic, yo.
This comes to a very important question about credibility. Again, I'm not condoning what happened in October 7th, but I'm not a journalist, but as a journalist, wouldn't you take anything that an authority would say with a grain of salt?
Yes.
Especially if this authority have a long history of lying. And I'm just gonna give a few examples. 1996, they bombed Qana. It's a refugee camp. They killed 106 people. And despite that they knew it's a refugee camp. They said, oh, maybe it's a one-time off. 2006, they bombed Qana again. 2014, 2 teenagers at a checkpoint. They denied, as usual, but CNN was there. So they said, we have to say it. 2018, they killed a medic, a Palestinian medic, and they fabricated a video showing that it's someone else, that he was a human shield. And then can I just finish?
Yeah, but I do want to respond.
And then 2010, they Ahmed Oraikat denied it, then said it's okay, it's us. 2021, they bombed the media office in Hamas, it's not us. And then 11th May 2022, Shireen Abu Akleh, a reporter, your colleague, she's Palestinian, American citizen, she was in the head. And they provided forensic evidence and even a doctor's video that it was not them, it was Islamic Jihad. How can I expect to believe this regime, especially if the president of Israel comes down with this ridiculous thing? Have you seen that? No. He said, okay, this was reported by Sky News, and it was the funniest thing. This was a Colin Powell moment, but like the cheap edition. Said like Isaac Herzog, it's like, we have found evidence on one of the terrorists, a manual to create chemical bombs. And then he showed this. Why would a foot soldier go into enemy with like a manual to chemical bombing? It's like, is that BYOB, bring your own beer, bomb? It's crazy. What he have local ingredients to make, and then this is like, this is a manual of Al-Qaeda, of course, conveniently written Qaeda. And let me read it to you in Arabic because this is funny. So, النشرة الدولية المعنية بالتطوير الذاتي والمعرفي للمجاهدين, which basically say, this is basically like a catalog for self-improvement for mujahideen. I didn't know that they have life coaches. So this, and you know what Sky News said? It's like, we cannot confirm or any of this, but we will show it anyway.
So let me respond.
So this is like this is a lying government.
So let me respond. I do think the Israeli government has lied.
All the time.
Right? I do think they've lied. I'm not going to dispute that. I do think they've been caught lying. I do think they've said things that turned out not to be true. I also think that 2 weeks ago, a hospital was bombed.
Yes.
And it was
Who do you think
immediately...
did it?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I think. Hamas immediately tell the world it was an Israeli airstrike and that 500 people were killed and that the hospital had been destroyed. And then as the next couple of days go by, the hospital is relatively undamaged. The car park was obliterated because actually we're reliant on the Palestinian Health Authority, which is Hamas in Gaza, for the figures. So we don't know the number, but a lot fewer people died, it would appear, than the
Like
500. We don't know.
50?
Either way, it's appalling, but it may not have been anywhere near as appalling as was first said by Hamas. But here's the point. Most independent studies of what happened have concluded that it was almost certainly a militant stroke terror group inside Gaza, and they fired a rocket which landed in the hospital car park. In other words, it wasn't an Israeli airstrike.
So I have an issue with that because for 3 days before the attack, the priest and the patriarch of the hospital, because it's called the Baptist hospital, said that they have received multiple warning from Israel that they're going to hit the hospital. And then at the time of the hit of the hospital, one of the top aides of Netanyahu, he tweeted about like we hit the hospital, and then he deleted it, and then basically like Israel gaslighted the world.
But
It was not us. It was not us.
That's why I said most independent.
No, that's not true. New York Times actually like just published something to prove that it was shot from Israel. And the thing is,
No,
okay,
they didn't. Though.
Okay, numbers.
They didn't.
Numbers.
Bassem, that's not true.
Okay.
The New York Times has not reported that it was Israel.
No, they said
They haven't.
okay.
That's not true.
Over 10 years, Hamas launched 35,000 rockets into Israel.
And many failed.
They killed 69 people and 25% military, only part of them were civilians. So over 10 years of 35,000 rockets, they killed 69 people. But in one strike, you want to tell me that these glorified firecrackers caused that kind of damage?
Yes, it looks like they did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, it wasn't the damage that was reported by Hamas, who wanted people to believe it was an Israeli airstrike. I'm happy to concede that Israel government has lied about stuff over the years, but I'm absolutely certain as well that Hamas lie all the time,
Yeah,
including,
militant-
I believe,
why
from
are-
all I've read, I believe they lied about the hospital.
Why are we holding the militant terrorist group to the same standards as the best
Because
and only
they happen
democracy
to be
in the Middle East?
they happen to be the ruling party in Gaza. So they're not just a terror group; they are a political group as well, a political party.
Okay.
Well, they are. So the question again comes to this, and so far you've ducked it. So I want to ask you one more time. We can both agree that the scenes in Gaza right now are horrific, because I do feel that. But I don't know how else Israel can eradicate Hamas than the way that they're currently trying to do it. Do you have an alternative for them?
Well, again, we are locked in the same thing, what can we do now? But we don't look at what was happening over there. The best recruiter for Hamas is Israel.
So as you can see, these two are at an impasse when it comes to this topic, and people's criticism of both sides was that Bassem wasn't directly answering Piers' question, and that his frequent challenging of the validity of the information that Piers was presenting was viewed as disingenuous. Also, when it comes to Piers, people accused him of being the propaganda arm for the Jewish media and not being compassionate enough when talking about these sensitive topics. But what do you guys think? So now we're gonna close this one out with a confession from Bassem Youssef.
I refused to come on your show when your producer first called me for the first interview because I was scared. I was afraid. For me, that was a career suicide. This is even important because you are someone who's always talked about like against cancel culture, about like speaking your mind out. Speaking your mind out. I left Egypt and I came to America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, but I didn't know that there was a fine print said that you cannot speak about Israel. I have issue with that. Israel is a foreign country. They're allies. Good.
But you
we
can
give them
speak about Israel.
How many people lost their jobs? Even Bella Hadid.
She hasn't lost her job.
No, but she talked about death threats. She's talking about like being silenced.
Sure.
And about that, Bella Hadid is she's Palestinian. And you know who else? Gigi Hadid sisters.
I love the Hadid.
They are with us.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
I know them both. They're very nice.
yeah, but the thing is, if you are that high and you cannot speak about it,
I mean, I've spoken out about these issues, and you get shot at, not literally, but metaphorically, all day long on social media. That shouldn't stop people from doing it.
I'm just like wondering, as an American,
You do?
as an American, yeah. But like, I'm doing now because like the first interview went well.
Right.
I'm doing that because I want people to see that you can really speak up and not just get canceled, but get rewarded. My career is going fine.
Yeah.
It's great. There should be no limits.
I agree with
I'm
that.
kind of like so confused as an American citizen why every American presidential candidate have to go and kiss the hand and bend the knees to A5. This is a lobby that works for a foreign country interest. Why don't we have like a lobby for Saudi Arabia? At least they're giving us more money.
You know the great thing? You can say that here.
Yes.
You couldn't say it in Egypt. That's why you're living here.
Yes, but again, a lot of people feel the burn, the heat
But
whenever they come
If I
down.
was an American, I'd be going, all right, Bassem, all right, we'll take the criticism, because you can do that in this country.
And I'm happy.
When you criticize the government in your own country,
Yeah.
they drove you out.
Yes, and that's why I came to America, to play the white man's game, to pass this acquired white privilege to my children. But the problem
it's not just a country of white people.
But
the game in America is not a white man's game. It's a game that actually has a democracy and believes in freedom
there
of
are
speech.
dog whistles everywhere.
You're not going to be put in jail for this interview.
Or I can lose my career and I can lose jobs, and you know that.
You
know
could
that.
in Egypt, you could.
No, here you can.
In Egypt, they arrested you.
Here you can.
And they threatened you, and you would have probably ended up in prison.
Here, a lot of people lost their jobs because they spoke up.
It depends what they say.
Of course, but again,
If you're Kanye West and you spew anti-Semitic
No,
garbage,
I'm not. No,
you're going to lose.
I will never.
You're going to lose what you have.
I will never adopt that kind of point
Right.
of view. But the thing is, there is dog whistles everywhere.
So this interview was much more civil, respectful, and calm. Both parties made their points in the strongest way possible. We hope that you learned something valuable from this and take both sides' perspectives into consideration. We're gonna lay off the debates for a bit, but rest assured, we'll be keeping you informed on what's going on regarding this conflict. And be sure to check out our 会员区 for exclusive content. Until then, I will see you on the flip side. Peace!